Good day, everyone. I am Daniela Joyce Castillan, and together with my groupmates, I'll be discussing the radio broadcast production process. So, before we delve into the topic, let us all first find out the learning objectives for this module. Number one is to identify the stages in the broadcast production process. Number two is to discuss the importance of each production stage. And lastly, it is to prepare a broadcast program plan. So, as we all know, we will be creating a radio magazine program or planning it on one of our TMAs, or tutor mark assignment number 4, which is due on November 16. And I hope through this report we will be able to help you or guide you while you create your magazine program. So for the part for my part in this report, I'll be discussing the quick overview about the radio broadcast process. And first, I'll be discussing what should we keep in mind when doing a radio broadcast program. So number one, it's the strengths and limitations of the medium that we are using, which is the radio. Next is to ensure that we create pictures through words, music, and sound. And lastly, it is to draw upon the basic skills of verbal expression and mold it to suit the listening capability of our audiences. The strengths and limitations of the medium or the radio was already discussed on Module 7, and we can review them, these limitations and advantages, while we do our radio magazine program. So, these three factors are important, of course, because as we all know, our listener has the option. He or she has the option to switch the radio if he doesn't like it or he doesn't want to listen anymore with to our program. So another thing to keep in mind is our listener alternatively may not be attentive even if he or she is listening to our program. Our objective or our goal as we do the radio broadcast planning is to ensure that we plan it or and execute it, of course, in such a manner that we attract or hook the attention of our target listeners and hold that attention. So let's keep these things in mind as we do our radio magazine program plan in our TMA4. So next, let's discuss the attributes of an effective program. So one of the attributes of an effective program is the interest. Our radio program should be interesting both in terms of content and presentation. I would like to emphasize that it should be both in terms of content and presentation, because no matter how good our content or how interesting the content is, if the presentation or the manner of how we present our content is not good enough, um, it would be affecting the our ratio program negatively. So the participants' voice quality should captivate our listeners. For example, if the drama is not well acted or the script is badly read, then we cannot expect our listeners to be interested. So we should keep in mind that a poor performance kills the interest. Next is relevance. So we should ensure that our radio program relates to the lives of our listeners, and in some way they should be feel involved in it. So how can we make our radio program content relevant? It is um, we can make it we can make topics or ideas that concern their livelihood, for example, or the environment, or any activity that involves them and emotions. We should ensure that through our radio program, we can arouse admiration, curiosity, or show individuals in unusual places. Next attribute is comprehension. So we should ensure that the listeners would be able to understand the content to derive any benefit from it. So we need to ensure that our listeners understand the topic or the content we are broadcasting. It is, in addition to being relevant and interesting, the program must be comprehensible to the target audience. It should also try to create concrete images, avoiding abstract ideas as complexity leads to confusion. We should take note um, that our audiences use their sense of hearing while to consume the information or the content we are broadcasting. So we need to um, use words that they can comprehend while listening. So next attribute is conflict, which stimulates interest, whether it is between people, nations, ideas, or with nature. So conflict is interesting because it brings out a controversy or contrast or clash of some sort. It may be in the form of struggle or problem or even a challenging question. So these attributes of an effective radio broadcasting program has an ultimate goal to disseminate appropriate information on a relevant theme. The planning efforts should be directed towards this so that the messages conveyed produces the desired impact. So as we plan and execute our radio program, we should always take these attributes in mind. We should be guided by it as we do our planning and execution. Next, let us discuss the elements of a radio program. Number one is a spoken word. Spoken words are, as we all know, words present the content of the program and voice renders them meaningful. Words are a very powerful tool of communication, especially in radio. So it's the most common and most important element of radio programs. A radio programmer must paint pictures or mix images through these words. As we all know, um, our listeners uses their imagination, so we should help them as they consume our content. Next is sound effects. A radio listener must be helped to imagine or visualize the local type of people involved and what they are doing and feeling, etc. So, sounds are universal in nature and they can be understood by all linguistic groups. For example, we can use the sound of rooster in the morning or the owls at night to indicate nighttime. So those sounds can be naturally made or can be artificially created in a studio. So some sounds can indicate events or situation, like if it's like a sound effect of someone knocking at the door, indicates that someone has arrived, like that. So next element is music. Music can be used to produce programs like features or operas and as a sound effect in many programs to create the environment or mood. So music is a very powerful element of radio because actually most of radio stations has FM stations, right? So they are using music to captivate their listeners. So next is pauses. Pauses are used imaginatively to convey meaning, and if used appropriately, add to the quality of a radio. So we can actually this might be confusing because we all know that radio uses sound, right? So what's the importance of pauses? So let us take an example. A mother on her deathbed speaks to her son, and suddenly stops. So as imagine a radio drama wherein a dying mother is speaking and then suddenly stops. So that certain pause and a voice that say, gising ma or magsalita ka ma, ganun. Um, Yun na yung nagiging background ng after that sudden pause. So that conveys death, hopelessness, and when we build that up, those emotions can be felt by our listeners, making it more impactful. Next, let us have a quick overview of the persons involved in radio broadcast production. So first, we have the program director who chooses the program and set the broadcast schedule so that it fits the segmentation of the listener. Next, he looks for new ideas for his program or events so as not to be monotonous. Next is look at the industry market competition and is obliged to anticipate the loss of listeners who switch to other radios. And lastly, manage the presentation of broadcast content such as news and music choices. So, program director is the management part of the personnel involved in radio broadcast industry. Next, we have the producer who is responsible for the program he's taking care of, prepares all the necessary materials for the broadcast, strives for the quality of the content of the show, and be able to communicate and cooperate with the team. Next, we have the music director who is responsible to all the music related in the radio program, and must pay attention to music rotations on daily, weekly, and monthly basis. Next is the broadcaster, who is in charge of delivering the broadcast material to the listener. An announcer is a person who will deal with the listener, so it's required to maintain the harmony of speech to make it interesting and pleasant to hear. Next, we have the scriptwriter, who is in charge of writing broadcast scripts, advertisement, and event promos with a customized conversational language. The scriptwriter must master the oral text or spoken language and the grammar and rules of radio script writing. Next is the reporter, who is responsible in reporting, collecting, writing, and reporting local news stories. A reporter is also required to maintain sound quality so that listeners are willing to listen to the news they report and be objective about it. Next, we have news directors, who is responsible in determining news policies, supervising news staff, and deciding and selecting topics covered and reported. Next is the program operators, who work on sound and sound parts such as advertising, radio play, and self-produced event promos. So that would be all in my part of this report in module 10, and I hope I'll have discussed it effectively and guide you in creating the radio magazine program for TMA4. So for our discussion questions, let me read this. If you are currently affiliated or have worked in radio broadcast industry before, can you share your role and responsibilities? If not, please cite a radio program that exhibit one or more of the attributes mentioned and discuss why do you think it's an effective program. So that would be all. Thank you everyone and have a good day.